Hello, my friends. Welcome to the Joyful Telepathy Podcast. I am your host, Kate Sitka, animal communicator and spirit medium. I help people all over the world talk to their loved ones in spirit and to talk to their animals who are alive and in spirit. To book a session with me, just click the link in this episode's description or visit tofinoPsychic.com. This podcast is brought to you by my online course, Telepathic Communication with Animals and Spirit. I would love to help you learn to do this work, and there's plenty of it to go around. I believe that telepathic communication is something that most of us do naturally, and that you can learn how with practice, encouragement, and support. To learn more, visit tofinoPsychic.com/class. You can email me anytime, tofinoPsychic@gmail.com. And now, perk up your ears and park your fears. Here's this episode of the Joyful Telepathy Podcast.
Greetings, dear listener. I'm Jen from the Brassy Broadcasting Company. I work with Kate on this podcast. You're about to hear part 2 of Kate's conversation with Andrea. We're picking up the conversation from part 1 about spiritual practices. If you haven't already, give part 1 of this conversation a listen.
We're really trying to just make everyone the same.
Yeah.
We're not the same.
Yeah.
And isn't that okay? In fact, I'm so glad this woman is coming into my mind. There's a couple podcasts, the Numinous podcast with Carmen Spaniola, who I came to through you. Thank you so much.
Isn't she awesome, Carmen Spaniola?
Oh, my God.
And the Numinous podcast. That's what it's called.
That's right. That's right.
I was trying to remember it the other day. And and I'll ask Jen, my editor here, to link that below as well.
Oh, holy crow. You know, her podcast, I have to go back to over and over and listen and re-listen because she goes so deep. And I very much so recognize, and this is again where it's like there's an opportunity to go deep. I don't always understand what she's talking about. And then I'll re-listen to something like a year later and I'm like, oh, that's what she meant. So there's 2 podcasts with Tiffany Joseph, who is wise beyond her years. The first one, I believe, was about language. I think it's entitled like On Language, Land, and Everything Important. She gives the example of African-American vernacular, slang. It's first otherized and criticized. It's not proper English, to speak a certain way. It's not right. It's not correct. It's less than. And then it's mimicked. And now all of a sudden it's pop culture. And that very specific cultural identity has been diluted. And now everyone's the same. And we're not the same. Just speaking like very minutely about like slang, the slang here in the Bay Area versus slang on the East Coast, we have different ways of speaking. Tiffany Joseph calls it the English mind. English as in the language. I believe she's referring to, not the people.
Right.
I like to think of it as a colonizer mind.
Yeah, I like that term a little better.
I like what you're doing. I like what you have. I'm going to take it for myself. Thanks.
Yeah.
There's no exchange. There's no reverence. I like what you're doing. So I'm going to do it no matter what.
Yeah.
It's just a very colonizing way to think. And I say this with colonizers on both sides of my family. So I say it with great weight. I don't want to do that. I want to take myself out of the practice of simply doing what I like, simply because I like it. What is my intention?
Yeah.
Because if my intention is to clear the energy of my home, or the purpose is to clear the energy of my aura, then perhaps if my aura is made up of my, my energetic situation, my bones, my body, that actually includes my ancestors. DNA-wise, I have very, very, like 3% of Native, North American First Nations in my blood. So if my intention is I want to clear the space in my home and on my property, wouldn't I want it to be the energy that is for me? As opposed to saying, well, I like that thing over there, so I'm just going to do that. It doesn't even make sense. It's like eating food that doesn't resonate with you. You can do it.
Yeah.
You definitely go ahead, go for it. But if you want the most healthy body that you can have, then you should, in theory, feed it with the foods that will make you the healthiest and strongest that you can possibly be. And so the same with our spiritual practices and traditions. I no longer want to cultivate the energy of colonizing. And taking, constantly fucking taking things. Our nephew, when he was like 4 years old, I remember this. Oh, I felt so silly. We were at the beach. And I was asking him, don't you want to, look for seashells and take some home? He goes, no, seashells live at the beach. That's where they belong.
Oh, little man.
Right?
Leave only footprints.
Leave only footprints.
Take only pictures. Look at that. Look at what he's learned.
Oh, my goodness gracious.
He
taught me so much in that moment. Because I take things off the ground. I have my entire life. And to just stop and say, now, wait a minute now. Would I be willing to ask for permission? Am I willing to wait and see what comes to me naturally?
Yeah.
Or do I just take it because I like it and I want it in my house? Like, Jesus, that's a really not great way to treat other people.
And be careful what you ask for, too, because sometimes things come to you in a way that you never intended. So, for example, there are so many people, because feathers have such spiritual connection for so many people. And so frequently we want to ask for feathers. And when I moved out here, loved the stellar jays. And so I was asking for a blue feather. Can I please have a blue feather? I would love to have a blue feather. Why did I want a blue feather? Why did I need that? I don't know, but it was just, I was so excited by them, and I would just love to have a blue feather that I could touch and hold and keep and feel this connection with this beautiful blue bird that was new to me. So about a week later, I come across a stellar jay that had been hit by a car and was still alive. And he said to me, here's all the blue feathers. And I have never asked. Never, ever, ever will I ask for anything ever again. And he died in front of me, and thank God he died quickly, because here was my responsibility now. What am I going to do? And thank God he died quickly. But he, like that image of him blinking at me, that I was the last thing he saw. How dare I ask? And it's just so shocking, I never, of course I would never have asked. And the thing is if you really, sometimes people will ask out of a sense of need and eagerness. And I was so enthusiastic about it. This was not my intention, but somehow I had sent out this need. And one of the bird spirits answered my call. And it was, my need was not worth their life. And this is something that has happened to a friend of mine who was asking for hummingbird feathers.
Oh my God.
And her cat brought her a hummingbird.
Wow.
So we need to be very careful when we're asking for things. And I mean, I have been guilty of asking for eagle feathers. You know, I live out here. I love these birds. And, you know, and I could go into it. The tradition of eagle feathers is you're not supposed to keep them for longer than a year. You're supposed to pass them along because it keeps the energy moving. And so if I have been without an eagle feather for a while, I will ask, you know, I would love to bring another one in my life. But now I'm with as a part of the energy exchange, and no harm, and no, you know, I'm fine living without it. When I ask, it's with a completely different energy now.
Absolutely.
And people can bring that sense of need to their spiritual practice, and there's an imbalance there.
Absolutely. Well, it's a clinging. It's a very desperate. You know, I've done the same. I actually have a blue feather story as well.
Really?
And I thank you for sharing that, because that, I'm sure, was very difficult for you.
It was a lesson. It was definitely a lesson.
Truly. But that desperation, I have felt this way myself, that desperation of where's mine? You know, where's my teachers?
Yeah.
Where's my guidance? Where is it? Come on. And it's a very, it's like I'm grasping at straws, which is actually a concept let me just write that down, because I want to come back to that.
Grasping at straws.
Grasping at straws. One of the mantras that I have adopted for myself, and specifically with working on my chakra system, is I will to thy will.
Can you say that again?
I will to thy will. This arose when a friend of mine was experiencing cancer. And, you know, I would pray for her. And I also, because my father experienced cancer, and my parents experienced many health issues, I knew that I couldn't become attached to I'm going to heal my friend.
Right.
I tried that with my parents, didn't work, and that was something.
Yeah.
So when I started praying for my friend, I had to really this idea of give it to God, using air quotes when I say God, because I certainly don't mean the Christian Catholic God I was raised with.
Yeah.
But source.
I say God rather than source, because to me, I feel closer when I say God. I feel closer when I visualize a consciousness that I can back and forth with. You know, that is somewhat anthropomorphized.
Right.
And I think that's okay, whatever brings that connection.
Exactly. It's the energy from which we've come.
Yes.
You know, I just really had to say, I'm going to pray for my friend without being attached to her health. I can't want something for her and get so caught up in my wanting, because that's not the intention of my prayer.
Yeah, my want pain.
Yeah. So I really had to allow my will to align with the will of God. I also was asking for a blue feather. There was a situation with myself and my partner that was not having any movement or traction. And I just thought, I need a sign of good faith. Send me a blue feather so that I just know all is well. So I don't freak out. So I was actually just asking to feel better. I just don't want to be freaking out about this situation. And I wanted proof, right? I wanted something tangible. And I do find turkey feathers. There's a lot of wild turkeys in this area, so I find a lot of turkey feathers. I know, I love them, and they're shedding right now. So they're sprayed across the hillside across from me. It's a lot of fun. And baby turkeys are just the cutest little things.
They are. Oh my God.
Oh God, they're so adorable.
They're cute little buggers.
Oh yeah, they are. So I was asking for this blue feather, and I was just send me a blue feather. Not a turkey feather, not a pigeon feather. I want a blue feather so that I know all is well, because I need proof, universe.
Yeah.
Which is kind of problematic in and of itself, right?
Because we're kind of holding our faith hostage.
Uh-huh.
And a hostage situation is there's a lot of restriction in there. It's difficult to create flow when there's a hostage situation. And this comes up in sessions. People want a very specific sign. And if people show up to a session and they want a password from their loved one.
Right.
You know, I'm like, there's a lot of things that can come up in a session that'll provide you with validation. But if this one thing doesn't come up and then that's going to nullify the entire session for you, then we're not ready to work together.
That's exactly right. Yeah. That's exactly right. Well, so I found my blue feather. It was in the gutter, and it was maybe the size of my pinky finger.
Yeah.
It was the smallest blue feather. It was like not even full blue. It was like only half blue. I laughed so hard, Kate. I'm like, universe, you are hella funny.
Yeah.
because to me, that was like, okay, sweetie, you want your blue feather? Mm-hmm. Like, I will send you the blue feather the size of a mustard seed. How strong is your faith? And that's really the message that I felt coming through was like, you're really going to demand proof?
Yeah.
Here's your teeny tiny halfway blue feather, girl.
Yeah, you're not going to be displaying this in any kind of glory. You're not going to be putting this in your jewelry box or in your maybe in your jewelry box, but it's not going on your shelf. It's going to blow away the next time you dust. Is this how fragile your faith is?
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. So this idea of like, I'm going to do what I want. I'm going to demand these feathers. I'm going to smudge with fate. It doesn't feel very humble to me.
Yeah.
And when I come out of humility and kind of get into my universe, you had better show me this and tell me that, I get checked real quick.
Yeah.
Real quick. And so, this pushing back that you got, well, they got the voodoo and so-and-so got the this and, they all do it. Okay, that's really great. But what are you really about? And the question is not even for me or you to ask the person who sent in these comments. I find it to just ask myself, to keep returning to, why am I doing this? Why do I collect turkey feathers? Why do I ask for a blue feather for proof? Either I believe or I don't. How strong is my faith? Where is that coming from and where is it going? And if it's just going into rituals that I see on the computer and I think look cool, or what, it's not authentic.
And where is the need? Where's the need coming from? Because I think there is a genuine need. When people have a really strong reaction, it's because they have a genuine need.
Right.
And maybe imitating the practices of people who are not your ancestors, and avoiding the history of your actual ancestors. Maybe you need to flip that. Maybe you need to the real work, the real spiritual answers is in turning towards what you're rejecting.
Right.
And stepping away from what you're grasping for.
Right.
And saying, I'm enough and everything is within me. What I need is within me. Look in, look in, look in, look in. I don't need the spirit. I don't need to grasp at the spiritual practices of others. And I mean, the reason why we're talking about smudging is First Nations folks have publicly said many times, stop stealing our rituals. Stop exploiting our spiritual practices. And smudging, especially these kits that get sold on Amazon, I mean, people are exploiting natural resources. Apparently, California is wiping out their white sage now because there's such a demand for it. Abalone has been threatened for quite a while, but now there's a market for it. So it's very... there's an active exploitation specifically with smudging. And so when we are aware of the exploitation, and we are aware that we have been asked by those who are sitting in the bodies of the people that we claim to admire and respect.
Right.
And they are saying, if you admire and respect us, this is how we ask you to demonstrate our respect, to demonstrate your respect. Then what's the spiritual thing to do there? You know,
right.
It's how do you get the flow? And the flow is, instead of shutting them out, and what they're saying is, the flow is to bring that in and to say, okay, I accept that. I'm going to humble myself in the light of your feedback. I'm going to look within for my spiritual practice.
That's exactly right. I had to write it down because I have 3 thoughts that for me, they fall in line. The grasping at the straws. A couple years ago at work, not hypnotherapy, but my day job, a client comes in, you know, I'm kind of like the receptionist, you know, I'm greeting her in our entry office. And this woman was really, really worked up. A white woman, you know, probably 50 or 60 years old. She was really just kind of, you know, kind of just riled up. So I, you know, kind of say, hey, is everything okay? And she proceeds to tell me about this girl who she saw outside, this young woman. And her look just really upset her, right? This woman was so upset. Oh, you know, she's got these piercings and these tattoos, and, you know, she's not of these cultures. She's not of these, because she was so upset that this young woman outside had tattoos and piercings that are of other cultures. So she's kind of, you know, expressing this frustration. And simultaneously, at the time, I had been running a lot of like half marathons and training for races. And at least in the U.S., I can't speak about other places, but marathon, 5K, you know, these are growing in popularity.
Yeah.
Right. These ways to, for me, and I'll circle back to this in a second, but for me, these ways to kind of honor our root chakra that we don't really have ways to do anymore. So people are running, people are doing Zumba, right? Like people are taking up dance classes. So as this woman was just really frustrated about the look of someone else, I just kind of say to her, it just falls out of my mouth. I just say, you know, maybe this is just a really poor attempt to find her tribe. You know, I have tattoos and some of my tattoos are not of my culture. You know, yeah, like people get all sorts, you know, I'm going to get, you know, the chakra symbols tattooed on me. I'm not Hindu, right? Like I'm going to get Chinese characters. I don't even know what it says. Like perhaps these are just really bad attempts to go back to something that we've lost.
Yeah.
We're grasping at straws. Now, we don't have to judge it, but can we notice it? Like, it's not bad if I have a tattoo of a different culture. But now that I'm kind of like, oh, wait a minute, this is an interesting situation, Andrea. What does this tattoo mean to you? You know, it's like, well, there's my opportunity to go deeper. So when I said this to this woman, you know, her jaw's like on the floor. She's like, I'm a cultural anthropologist. I never thought about that. But it's like, here we are, 2018, completely disconnected to our neighbors, to ourselves, to our ancestors, to our cultural traditions. Like the way that our ancestors lived for tens of thousands of years is lost to us. We are not living in a way that is in alignment with who we actually are. And it doesn't feel good. So we might numb ourselves with drugs or alcohol or busyness. We might, you know, cultural appropriate because we don't know how to appreciate other people's cultures. We just want to take it for ourselves because that's what we've been trained to do for the past 500 years. Um, in the same vein, just looking within for answers. I think it was the American tennis player Arthur Ashe who said, start where you are, use what you have, do what you can. So in that same time period that this woman was so upset a couple of years ago, there was a week that was very tense here in the U.S. With the shootings of unarmed African-American men. Mm-hmm. And in that same week, police officers were ambushed and killed. It was just a really rough week for me personally to witness all of this. I'm very privileged. I am biracial, fair-skinned. My existence comes with a lot of privilege. And then I'm witnessing really horrible things in my community. It fucking sucks. Like, I'm fucking over it. Like, it sounds super ridiculous to even say, like, how fucking whack racism is. Like, it's like, guys, it's 2018. Are you serious? So this particular week, I really didn't know how to hold all of this. So I'm like, okay, I'll meditate. I'm like, yeah, that's not really gonna, like, I can't like sit in a chair and be quiet right now. This is bullshit. So I'm like,
yeah, sitting down with that kind of energy.
Oh,
that's just gonna be itchy. That's gonna be the worst kind of itchy.
It's the worst. So then I'm like, fine, I'll pray. You know, I'll go back to my Catholic roots and I'll get on my knees and I'll pray. And I'm like, no, I don't want to pray. I don't want to ask for guidance. I was just really, I didn't know what to do with myself. So then I just put on music and I started dancing in my bedroom by myself. I just started pounding the floor with my feet.
Yeah.
Just pound and pound and shake and just let the feelings move through me. I cried and I shook. I just let it out. And then later, you know, physically I felt better. Doesn't change anything on the outside world. But what I realized was that intuitively, I knew that my root chakra needed to be addressed. When Black men are being killed, this could be my cousin, my uncle, or my friend. That is a threat. I am not a target as a fair-skinned biracial woman. And that's also very difficult to hold. You know, to say and accept my own privilege, that I even have a fucking option. Right? That my solution would even be to fucking pray. As opposed to march.
Yeah.
Right? Or write a letter. Or physically confront someone. It's a fucking privilege to sit in my cozy little house and dance. Straight up. This is root chakra work. I say all that to say, in that moment of doing the work that felt important to me, I knew what I needed. I didn't have to smudge with white sage. I didn't have to, you know, pull out a Native American drum. I knew in that moment that I needed basically to do African dancing. So I will to thy will. I'm not going, I no longer want to take what is not mine because I like it. I would be willing to make room for what is for me in my life. And it may not be Instagrammable. It may not look cool.
Yeah.
You know, but it is thoroughly and truly for me. These answers that are coming to me from within and guiding me along this path. And again, I feel like I'm just getting started. Like, I haven't even touched the tip of the iceberg with where I should really be focusing my attention. But what I do know is that when I look at what everyone else is doing and use that as a reason for me to do something, well, no one else is marching. Well, everyone else is doing this. It's like, I call bullshit, Andrea, Dorothy. Absolutely not. If my spiritual life is to connect, to remind me that we are all connected. That does not mean taking ownership of something over there, but to, again, just give myself the opportunity to align myself with what is true for me and not react and not respond and not defend and not point fingers. Just to open that space, see what flows through.
I'm really enjoying this.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, like, I'm really enjoying the space that you've created around this, the energetic space, and I just want to. You're doing so much energetically, and I'm so grateful for the work you're doing right now. Thank you.
Absolutely. Again, I thank you. I thank you for this opportunity. It has meant so much to me in my spiritual life, in my spiritual practice. Like when I look at my journal, these are the things I'm writing about. You know, and what is my place? About a year ago, I took my very first trip, my partner and I, to Yosemite National Park.
Oh, cool.
It's so beautiful there.
Yeah.
I mean, just, you know, wow. And it's a 4-hour drive. I mean, it's not far from where I grew up. And when we were there, they have a little Native American section to show how we took land from the Yosemite, you know, tribes. They have a little section, you know, to see how they live. It's got a gift shop.
Oh, good Lord.
I know. So I'm in the gift shop, and I'm, you know, there's this part of me that's like, well, I want to like give money, right? Like if I can't give you your land back, like I want to somehow give, right? So I'm looking at the gift shop, and like I'm thinking about buying some sage, and the gal's behind the counter, and I'm really noticing that I'm super uncomfortable around this Native American woman. She's working her job at the gift shop. And here I am getting ready to buy my sage so I can clean my house. Like, really? Are you fucking serious? It was such an eye-opener for me. Like my level of discomfort was screaming on the inside. There's nothing high vibration about this interaction.
Because this is a result of the oppression.
This is a result.
This situation is exactly the result of the oppression.
Right? Like the reason she's working at the gift shop and I'm about to buy sage at a gift shop is exactly the reason why I shouldn't be saging. And this was over a year ago. It was like, wow, Andrea. You know, here I am in my mind, really putting her ancestors on this pedestal. Oh my God. Oh, look. Wow. Oh, and I wonder if her ancestors are paying attention to me. Oh, look at me. I'm about to. I mean, like, I really, really saw myself, and it was not pretty. I felt hella fucking stupid, for lack of a better way to say it. I felt so small. And this is all inside of me. She did nothing. She was just there, prepared to take my money.
She doesn't care whether you buy the sage or not.
Yeah, right? She's getting her minimum wage, whatever. So again, I had to ask myself, Andrea, what's actually your intention with purchasing sage? You know, when and I've had this conversation with one of my good friends who, one of her first responses is, I don't know my ancestors. I don't know where I come from. It's like, that's exactly right. So then can we, again, give ourselves the opportunity to let that answer arise from within, as opposed to just doing maybe what we've been taught, maybe what we see around us, or just what everyone, quote unquote, everyone else is doing. It's like, or maybe I give myself the opportunity to see what's right for me. And I might find myself dancing in my bedroom by myself. I might find myself, at the shoreline, barefoot, giving my tears to the bay water. As opposed to doing something that the Ohlone Native peoples would have done. I'm not Ohlone. I'm not of this land. But it holds me. And it takes care of me. And I want to show my appreciation. Am I willing to humble myself enough to learn how to do this? Or do I just think I know it all? Which comes up quite a bit, right? Well, everyone else does it. like, yeah, okay, if that's how you see the world, but I think it's a very, what's the word for like unhumble? It's a very grandiose way.
Arrogant?
Right. And that arrogance is truly a part of colonization.
Yes, it really is, and it was reinforced.
Over and over. Like the laws reinforce it.
Yeah, like the laws reinforced it. Like the laws came in because you had people truly believing that they were superior, and this still happens. People still believe there are hierarchies of evolved human beings, which is absolute bullcrap. But that unbelieving there's a hierarchy gave people enough arrogance to say, I have a right to change you. I have a right to take your children. I have a right to this land. I have a right to colonize because I'm superior, because I'm saving you from your way of life, which I am going to label as less than mine, less civilized.
Right. And then, give it several generations. One of the articles that I sent you, this lady, Peggy Ayers, writes, colonized for centuries now, white people have forgotten why having an ethno-culture is important, yet we yearn for it at the same time. This collective soul loss is at the root of our attraction to indigenous societies and the exotic other. So again, and this is not just for white people, because Black people appropriate it's humans, we appropriate because we've all lost touch with our ancestors. We don't have access to it, but we need it. Like we feel that soul loss, which is why we're smudging, right? Which is why we're asking for feathers. Like, we want to feel connected.
Exactly, and that's why it comes from such a place of need. Exactly.
So then, can we? So again, for myself, using mantras is the way that I try to remind myself I'm connected when I don't feel connected. It's like, all is well, all is well. In every sense of the feeling, Andrea, all is well. And sometimes I believe it and sometimes I don't, but I at least start with that so that I can at least trust the path that I'm on without grasping at straws, maybe quite as much.
This has been such a wonderful conversation.
I'm enjoying it so very much. Thank you so much.
I wrote a little note here as you were. Sometimes it's like when you come to a conclusion, Andrea, the weight of what you have said just suppresses my consciousness a bit. And so I want to leave these spaces so that the energy the impact of it can completely permeate.
Yeah.
And it's difficult to transition from that. I'm finding it difficult to transition from that space of she has spoken into, and here's something that I wrote down. So, about there's a little bit here that was in this Instagram comment about preserving, that practicing the saging was somehow contributing to the preservation of Native culture. And that's something that is used as an excuse to appropriate a lot of things. I'm just honoring your culture. And what I wrote down was, it's not up to white folks to preserve culture by practicing it ourselves. It's up to us to excavate our own connection.
That's exactly right. Like, what about your own culture? Like, and again, maybe it's the white guilt, right? Like, maybe it's the guilt of the weight of the past.
Yeah.
That's, it's kind of like, oh, well, maybe I can try to correct this somehow.
Yeah. And absolutely, that's a huge part of it. White people have to reconcile with white guilt, and we have to hold it ourselves. We have to deal with it within our own community. It's not up to us to go to people of color and say, I need some sort of forgiveness for this. Like, that's up to us to hold on our own. That's a part of our spiritual work. And I think a big part of it is dive into history, dive into how, Catholicism it's interesting, the battle between Catholicism and Protestants. When you look back through, the white monarchy and understanding how monarchies worked, how countries and borders worked in Europe, we didn't just come from, the singular pagan background. I mean, white people all colonized each other first. Right. And there was all of these culture wars. And so we've been losing our culture for, I think it's just a continuous cycle of rebuilding and loss.
Right. Right. So in that Tiffany Joseph interview on the Numinous podcast, the first interview with her, at one point Carmen is basically asking, like, how can I be an ally? As a descendant of settlers, how can I treat you well? And Tiffany's response is, how can you know how to treat me when you don't even know how to treat yourself well? Malidoma Somé, the West African, spiritual teacher, says that the elders in his community of Burkina Faso say of white people and people who tried to and did colonize his area, they must not have any relationship with their ancestors. Their ancestors must have done horrible things for them to treat other people this way.
Yeah.
So again, let's circle back to kindness and compassion for self first. What's that beautiful Bible quote of don't worry about taking the splinter out of my eye until you get the mote out of your eye.
Until you get the
log. The log out of your the log out of your eye before you try to get the splinter out of mine.
That's a good one.
Isn't that great?
It's a great visual too. I just see a cartoon.
A log in your eye.
A cartoonish log, like, in someone's eye, and someone's like, you've got a little thing. You've got to just hold still while I get the little... It's like, you think I'm going to let you take a splinter out of my eye when you've got this big messed up thing going on right here? Like, stay away from my eye.
That's exactly right. Like, clear your own first.
Yeah.
Take care of your own culture first.
Yeah.
Heal the ancestral lines that you've come through before you attempt to preserve anyone else's culture. Again, that's a very colonizer. Oh, here, let me do this for you.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
The audacity.
Yeah. And so what I really appreciate, because so many people of color are really thrown into this role of having to help white people do their own spiritual work by throwing up mirrors and going, look at that big log in your eye.
In your eye.
Look at your messed up eye. Don't come at me.
That's exactly right.
Do not come at me trying to get my splinter. I'll deal with my splinter.
That's right.
I have people.
Right. Trust that I can handle my splinter. Good luck with your law.
Yeah. So, that's something that I think is really important for white folks to take on board, is to realize when we go to people of color, and whenever we go to people of color for spiritual education, for teaching, we need to be really aware of the energy we are bringing to it. Are we bringing some of that clinging, grasping, needing energy, some entitled energy? What are we bringing to it? Are we forcing our friends to do labor for us, to throw up mirrors? Are we, what is, and that takes a lot of work. That takes a lot of insight when you are a privileged person in a majority white culture where you're just dancing around, having no idea how many toes you're stepping on because the system's been set up to silence people.
And the system is set up to silence people. So when anyone of privilege is saying, oh, but I'm helping preserve. Oh, but I'm doing this because I really love it. Understand that you're actually talking over people.
Exactly.
That's really great that you can send strong, energied, angry emails. But are you listening? Are you listening to actually what's being said? Or are you just fucking talking?
Yeah.
And again, I always come back to the chakra system. It's like, check your throat.
Yeah.
Clear communication is a two-way street. So if you're only able to say, but I'm going to do this, and this is what I want, and I'm going to do these great things, and this is me, it's like there's not even room to listen to what's maybe trying to be downloaded to you. Maybe there's an opportunity for you to learn something.
Yeah.
Perhaps. Call me crazy. Maybe we don't know it all. And that energy of knowing it all is harmful.
Oh, this is something I want to get Lana back on the podcast because she has this clinical psychology background, and the energy of knowing it all starts so many bad things. And we've gotten into a conversation a couple of days ago about cults, and cults always have to start with someone saying, I've got all the answers. Which is why I will never say that. And I will say, these are my experiences that I have had with people in the hundreds of sessions that I have done in my lifetime so far. And maybe I'm getting into thousands of sessions at this point. So I have experience that I'm happy to share and perspectives that I'm happy to share. But as soon as someone gets into this is what the afterlife is like, full stop. This is what death is like, full stop. We cannot know. We cannot know. And anyone professing to know everything, red flag, red flag. Because as soon as you get a tribe of people together, a group of people together, all agreeing, yes, this is exactly how it works, and everyone else is wrong, and now we're bringing the judgment in, and you start to insulate and you start to radicalize. I mean, it's a shame because there's so many good communities that started out well that start to become insulated and get to be so attached to their particular dogma, and then as it continues to evolve, there's this, and Lana will be able to speak to this better, but there's a social phenomenon where people want to, over time, become more extreme in order to isolate, in order to strengthen that insulation bond. I'm paraphrasing everything.
That's separation. We are this, and they are them.
Yes. Yeah, and that's not my spirituality. I am so much more interested in connecting with people, in connecting with the different experiences of people, and even people who have a difficult background. So bringing this back to my family, my grandfather, my German grandfather, who came of age through World War I and was in his prime in World War II. So he grew up with this war, and he grew up in the rhetoric of communist Germany, and he took a lot of that on. He was a member of Hitler Youth. He was actually, in all of this, he actually spent a few days in a concentration camp because he was caught listening to Louis Armstrong.
Wow.
So this was because Germany issued these radios that were tuned to only get the frequencies of the authorized radio stations, the Germany's broadcast, and he opened it up and screwed with it and got a French channel and was blasting Louis Armstrong, and his neighbors called him on it. So here he was in a concentration camp, and he got out because he had the privilege and the connections. Someone pulled him out. So he didn't have to spend too long, but even just those few days there caused him trauma that affected him for the rest of his life. And the trauma he experienced growing up made him not a good parent. And the stories that my father has told me are bone-chilling.
Yeah.
And me sitting in witness, granddaughter to my father, and I think as children, as we go down the generations, we take on the burdens of our families.
Mm-hmm.
We take on the burden,
generational trauma.
Yes, we take on the burdens of our parents. And as I grow older and I continue to do this work, I realize how much of my father's burden I have taken on. Because it is mine to carry. That's what I am supposed to be doing. It's mine to witness what he experienced growing up and how he did not have a father the way that I had a father.
Mm-hmm.
He had something else in his life. And knowing that my Opa is a villain to my father, yet still being able to hold him in love. It's still being able to go visit him, and out of respect for my father who does not speak to him. But I will still go and visit my Opa. And my father has been clear he doesn't want to hold me from Opa. It's his choice to no longer speak to his father. And so I go and I witness my Opa's experience, and he's still alive. He's in his 90s, and now he has Alzheimer's, and his Alzheimer's went off a cliff earlier this month. And he's deeply confused. So he's now wandering around. Last I heard, he's wandering around in this very good non-retirement home, not an assisted living, but it's a facility. It's like a hospital for folks that have really high needs. So he was wandering around asking, "Where's the elevator to Germany?"
Wow.
So he's to the point where he's so confused he no longer protests, and he's just no longer safe to be by himself. He has to be moved into this facility, and they're very experienced, and it is a very good facility. But my Opa's experience, my Opa's consciousness, his human experience right now as a man in his 90s with Alzheimer's, a man who is so deeply traumatized as a child, whose root chakra was so destabilized for decades that he was not able to parent his children, and was not able to be a supportive partner to his wife. And that this is where he is. I mean, just holding his life experience without the judgment.
Right.
Because I wasn't subject to that abuse. My parents protected me from that. And so I don't have that energy with my Opa. But it's, at the same time, respecting and honoring my father's experience. So, I mean, there's so much energetic work that I have to do within my family, holding the trauma of wars that ended before I was born, that has had a profound effect on how I was raised. And so that's my work to do, and that's just 2 generations.
Right? I mean, just 2 generations. Right? I mean, when we, and sometimes this can be very overwhelming because it's like, my goodness, this is just one man's experience. And then when we start looking at all of our relatives and all of our ancestors, it can feel it's much easier in theory to be like, no, I'm just going to pretend to be a Native American. Like, I don't want to deal with this.
I'm going to identify. How ridiculous of me.
I want to identify with someone else because mine is just too much for me.
Because mine is uncomfortable, you know. And
right, which really negates what First Nations people have gone through.
Because you also have no idea really what First Nations people... You really don't know. You really have no idea what it's like. No idea. Yeah, the stories that I hear from First Nations folks out here, because we have annual days that honor the genocide out here, and so one is Every Child Matters, and it's coming up soon. It's in September, and it's honoring the day that the RCMP would come out here and forcibly take children from their homes. And so hearing the stories of people describing what it was like to have police show up with German shepherds, hunting them to take them from their families and install them in an institution that was designed to rob them of their family connection and their heritage. We can't know what that is. And when you're smudging, you're not connecting with any of that. You know, you're not a part of that. You didn't survive that. You don't have the right to say I'm honoring Native American people, because you're contributing to further spiritual violence if you're taking this for your own selfish purposes. If you're choosing to ignore your own background in favor of this romanticized. Yeah, and I mean First Nations folks have been their culture has inspired imaginations all over the world. And why is that? You know, because we have this need.
Exactly.
You know, Germans,
our own internal disconnect. One of the books that have made such a strong impact. I read this book when I first came across Channeling Eric. You know, when that first website was just coming out. That's how I found you. So many years ago. Was the work of Dr. Gabor Mate, When the Body Says No, Exploring the Stress-Disease Connection. Yeah. Because my parents were disabled, it was my focus for many years, was physical health. And, you know, in his book, when he talks about the stress-disease connection, what he's talking about is the intergenerational trauma from war, from slavery, from colonization, from these things have been built into our bodies, and then we pass them on to the next generation. Yeah. I'm not going to try to quote studies because I will do it very poorly, but there's been studies done, you know, after the Irish famine, after the Holocaust, the state of health from the children who were born into these environments. You know, Dr. Mate's theory is basically autoimmune diseases arise when the nervous system can no longer respond. You've essentially had so much trauma, either real or imagined. You've fought, fled, and frozen so many times that you simply cannot do it anymore, and you just check out. You simply, your body is literally no more.
You are blowing my mind right now.
Isn't that amazing?
And I'm just looking it up on Amazon so I can put it in my shopping cart because I need it. Because I tell you, my health, what I experienced when my mother was diagnosed with cancer, was such a rapid decline in my own health. I mean, I had had pelvic pain for decades, but I was coping, I was managing. But what happened after my mother was diagnosed, I find it so difficult to describe, and it's something that I still feel like I'm recovering from, because the physical pain escalated very quickly. My weight shot up. You know, I was having everything was crazy out of alignment, and it took me. Oh, good, here it is. The hidden cost, or the cost of hidden stress. Okay. Is that it? Gabor Mate? No.
Mate. So he's written several books. The first one that I read is called,
Stress disease connection.
That's it.
Okay, hang on. So I just want to make sure I'm getting the right book in my shopping cart here. Add to cart. Add. If I don't do this right away, then I'm gonna
forget.
I'm gonna lose it. So yeah, and Louise Hay has touched on this kind of thing, so it's been in my orbit, and it triggered a process in my body that was ultimately corrected with surgery. Hallelujah. Right. Thank you, Western medicine.
That's right.
And since my surgery, the last 6 months, I've been rebuilding my body. And a big thing I've been asking myself very recently is, where did my resilience go? Like, at what point did my self-discipline become self-flagellation?
Right.
Because where's my self-discipline? Where's my, I have ambition, but every time I have ambition, immediately there's this protective thing that comes in that says, but don't try too hard, but don't work too hard, because the last time I did that, I damaged myself.
Yep.
So it's something that I've been playing with, and I knew that I'm going back to when this started was when my mother was diagnosed. I was like, I know there's a connection there, and perhaps the death triggered that I had to resolve a lot of the emotional work that needed to be done there. Because now when someone is dying and has passed, then the relationship is not the incarnated relationship no longer continues.
Right.
So there is resolution work that has to be done there. And so I was like, well, that's got to be a part of it. And I feel like I've done as much of that as I can, but there's still this mystery of, well, this is still somehow affecting my mindset. And I'm observing it, because good Buddhist practice, and thank goodness, thank you for all my Buddhist teacher friends out there who do share. It's not cultural appropriation when you've gone to the teachings. It's not cultural appropriations when you're reading the books that are published by people who are publishing it for the sake of teaching this skill because they want it out there and shared. Totally different than taking as much. So I'm just clarifying for some folks.
And nowhere in that invitation.
Yeah, and nowhere in any
is to be shared.
Exactly, and nowhere in any Buddhist book, however, does it say use the image of the Buddha to decorate your bathroom.
Right.
So so there's like. It's awareness, right? It's just, it's awareness. So having that skill of observing myself and going, well, I used to, whenever I would get this inspiration, I would lock into it. And maybe I would push myself physically so that I could get something done. But why do I suddenly have a fear and a hesitation now? And how can I work with that and get over that? And I am thank you because I feel like this book is going to be helpful.
It literally changed my life.
Wow.
When I first read this book, because both of my parents had the same disease, multiple sclerosis, I spent my entire childhood and young adulthood basically living in fear, waiting for when I would be diagnosed.
Yeah. God.
People would say, oh, do you want to have kids one day? Absolutely not. I'm not going to abandon my children the way my parents abandoned me.
Right, yeah.
If I'm going to get sick, I'm not going to have kids because that's irresponsible. I had very strong feelings about it.
Yeah.
I had to, in therapy, with both parents having already passed on, I had to forgive them for having me.
Yeah.
I was really angry about that.
Yeah.
Like, how dare you have a kid when you know you're sick? That's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
And this is before I had any understanding of like soul contracts and life path and all of that. And actually, I still ask, is there a purpose to all that, guys?
Mm-hmm.
Like, is this ever going to come full circle, or did I just have this childhood of like sadness and suffering?
Mm-hmm.
Are we going to do anything with this? Is it going to go anywhere, or is it just like, no, that's your childhood, So I have some attachment to that trauma.
Yeah, we do continue to grope through our childhood experiences and try to make sense of it.
Yeah, you want to make sense of it.
And there's, I don't know, it's so funny. I struggle with a similar kind of anger, and that is, and anger isn't. I'm not sure if anger is quite the right word because, I've done all of the cognitive work. I know that everybody did the best that they could with the resources they had. Like that, what you said before, start where you are, use what you have, Do what you can.
Do what you can.
They did that.
Right.
Everybody did that.
That's right.
And even though everybody did that, I missed out on a lot of really important things. Things that were important to me developmentally, needs that I had that went unmet.
That were not met.
Yes.
Exactly
that is
right.
not the fault of anybody, but it also does not mean that I didn't deserve to have those needs met, and I didn't need to have those needs met. And so it is I've been doing a lot of work to try to, to try to reconcile that and let that go. And because it's become such a formative part of you when your childhood is your foundation. That's your personhood, and it's very important that we work on it and that we figure out a way to be in harmony, in flow with our experiences and our feelings, even the negative feelings.
Right, even the negative feelings. For me, it has felt very much like reparenting myself.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Very much so. I mean, there was a time, especially when I was in hypnotherapy school, when I had to treat myself as a newborn.
Mm.
And I would physically hold myself in bed and rock myself like a baby and tell myself it would be okay, because I finally had access to those memories from early childhood when I did not feel like I was okay.
Mm-hmm.
When I did not feel safe as a baby, no one could take care of me. My mother would tell me my birth story. I birthed myself.
Wow.
She literally said, you slid right out. Her muscles were no longer strong enough to feel contractions, have contractions.
Wow.
I birthed myself.
Good Lord.
Right?
What a way to come into the world.
To come into the world.
You gotta just claw your way out. You gotta claw your way on out if you want to breathe the air.
Figure it out, kiddo. That's
Mm-hmm.
right. And if you want to do anything in this world, you're gonna have to figure it out.
Wow.
And that I held a lot of resentment about that for a really long time. It felt very unfair. And then once I came across Dr. Mate's work, I'm like, wow, I'm definitely going to get a diagnosis if I continue to feel like this.
Mm-hmm.
That was really where I had to start, was like, wow, I've got to work through this stuff and heal it. As my grandmother would say, give it to God. I got to do something with it, because if I just hold this here in my heart, I will get a diagnosis of something.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd rather not. I'd rather live a long, healthy life. That's totally like my focus. So it was, reading his book was really an invitation to begin to look at myself and the way that I was holding the things that upset me.
Yeah. The way that you were holding the things that upset you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And can we hold them and then allow them to be transformed?
Mm-hmm.
And so, it's like we're talking about, in my mind at least, we're talking about like several pews in the same church. We're talking about like intergenerational trauma. We're talking about the way that we treat, quote unquote, others, right? People who we are taking from. There's always that opportunity to look at ourselves and ask those questions in a really kind and gentle way, as opposed to, no, you know what? My parents just couldn't take care of me. I did it myself, so whatever, fuck them. When I certainly have felt like that, certainly. But then it's like when I soften a little bit and forgive my parents, then I can begin to ask questions. Are you familiar with the work of Caroline Myss?
No.
Oh, goodness. This woman, last
book?
name is spelled M-Y-S-S, pronounced mace, like the herb, M-A-C-E.
Got her.
I came across her book, Anatomy of the Spirit. I found it on the ground. Again, things come to me, not my blue feather in the gutter, but like on the ground, on the cement. This book, Anatomy of the Spirit. And it's all about chakra work. And what she does at the end of each chapter is she asks questions that you can begin to answer. And so, for example, once I was able to say, maybe I don't hate my parents for having me. Maybe I don't hate them for getting sick and dying on me. Maybe there can be room for forgiveness and kindness. And now my parents and I are great friends in death.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing how how much the relationship changes after they pass? Because, my mother and I always loved my mother, but our relationship was full of pins and needles. Like if you just picture an apple and it's what you need and it's nutritious and it's sweet and it presents like an apple, but it's full of little needles. And if you bite it the wrong way, then you're going to get really injured.
Wow.
And that aspect of my mother's personality has never been acknowledged by my family. And sometimes I wonder, am I the only one that's experiencing this because I'm the only one that wants to speak it? But I know that's not true. I know that my sister, that my father experienced that side. Maybe they experienced it differently than me. Maybe I was more sensitive or took it more to heart or whatever. But there was a lot of tears involved in my relationship with my mother. Whereas even in the year after she was diagnosed, she would come and visit me spiritually. And I got to start to see previews of what she was going to be like in spirit.
Wow.
And it reminded me so much of when I was a small child and when she had so much joy still. So I don't know what happened. I don't know, because she struggled with some mental illness and depression, and I don't know how much a disease process had to do with that. I don't know how much of that is her intergenerational trauma that I know she was dealing with as well. I don't know. All I know is the effect that it had on me. And the mother that died in pretty severe conflict. And there was a lot of dressing up around it. There was no one was sort of discussing this, and I had to make a choice. Do I go to be at my mother's side while she's dying, or do I go to her funeral? Because I had only enough money to go once.
Right.
And I didn't want to go because we didn't know when she was going to pass. So I didn't want to go and then have to say that final goodbye and then miss her funeral because I just spent my money. So it was there was so much lack that was around that, and the respite that I got from that was my mother coming and visiting me while she was sleeping, and which got to be, as she got to be closer and closer to her time of death, she spent more time out of her body and would come and visit. And the spirit that she is it just seemed I knew it was her, and it reminded me. Like I recognized her energy from when I was a child. I'm like, this is the mother I recognize. There's joy, there's laughter, there's happiness, there's there's jokes, there's pride and pleasure in discovering things and showing me things. And it was a painful contrast for me at the time. But now that she's passed, and I can say, and I'm left to sort of figure out my relationship with her.
Right.
Like the last 20 years that we had. But that's not who she really is on a spiritual level at all. And so the relationship that I now have with her going forward is her witnessing, now she's holding me. Now she's witnessing my struggle as I try to figure this out and as I try to hold what's going on in my family. And I think it's difficult work. I don't think it's easy for anybody who does this work. I don't think anyone has an easy time of this, but I think that's why a lot of people are tempted to turn away from this, and they're tempted to cut off family members.
Yeah.
And just
super painful.
Yeah. And you can't just cut off a family member without continuously putting energy into that cutoff.
Correct.
You can't you don't just cut off and then now I can move on with my life. There's always going to be a leak there.
Yep.
So it's not easy. It's not just simply a matter of like, quote unquote, cutting out toxic people, which is something that I see other people talking about. It's like, sometimes it's better to come to a truce, or I don't know. It's so difficult.
Right. Well, and figuring out how to do it, I think that's the journey. Like that's
there you go. That's the work. That is the work.
It's literally the work.
That is the work.
it's similar for me. Now, my parents don't come through very often because I still grieve very heavily. I want to mark and just note this for any listeners. My father has been dead for 30 years. 30 years. And he still cannot come through on any sort of a regular basis. Now, he does come through sometimes, but I have been so attached. So I'm named after my father. Like, so much of who I am is because of my experiences in early childhood. I'm so married to my childhood.
Yeah.
That I know that's the reason my parents can't come through very often or very strongly. My mommy has been dead, what year is this? 15, 16 years now. And I've never dreamt about my mother. It's still too soon, which seems kind of crazy to me.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I recognize my attachment to them is that boundary. I'm not ready to let go of my childhood, even though it was incredibly painful. So it's like, now there's my work. It's right in front of me. That said, when my parents do come in, the relationship, I mean, my gosh, we are like best friends, right? Like, we laugh. My parents tell me jokes. There was this one time, sometimes I feel like a total nutcase. I was in the shower, Kate. I'm in the shower.
All kinds of spiritual stuff happens in the shower.
It does.
Yeah,
and I've had to like ask myself, I'm like, is this weird?
No, because you've got the water there. You've got the drain in the ground.
Yes.
You're not distracted by anything. You've got like privacy. The bathroom is a great place to practice.
Yes. And it's like, that's, a lot of spontaneous things happen for me in the bathroom.
Yeah. You and me both.
Yes. And so this one time, whenever I think of my father, I see him from when I was a kid, when he was in his early 40s. But he was very sick. So what he does is, like, I see him the way I see him, and then he changes his face to like an earlier picture, like his prom picture or something, but from before his diagnosis. So this particular time, I'm in the shower, I see my dad's face, and then he goes through his younger version. So I go, oh, hey, Dad. And then I'm like, oh, is this weird? I'm talking to my dad in the shower. And then I see my mom's picture, and then she does the same thing. So I know her from, being a 40 and 50-year-old woman living in a convalescent home, disabled, and she prefers a younger version of herself. So I see her, in her 50s, and then she takes me back to when she was about 14 or 15 years old, when she was in a better place. And then there's a picture of this.
Good.
I'm sorry?
Back when the bodies were still good.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. When their bodies were healthy and not weighing them down. And so then my parents, there's this picture of the three of us on a couch, and I'm a baby. So I'm seeing that picture, but their faces are of younger versions of themselves.
Aww.
Right? So my dad's like 19 in the picture, my mom's like 14, and there's me as a baby. And then one of them says, or gives me the energy of, ha ha, look at us as teenage parents. Oh my God, I must have laughed so hard. Like, you would have thought I was at a comedy club. I thought it was the funniest thing. And it brought me such joy. And it's like, no one can understand how funny this was. You had to be there, just like my win story, right?
Yeah.
You had to be there. But I recognize that they are not who I know them to have been here on earth. I don't know my parents. I can say that. Like, I'm getting to know them in death.
Yeah.
I don't know their personalities. I actually don't even remember my mother's voice. She lost the ability to talk when I was like 13 or 14 years old.
Wow.
that came with a lot of resentment.
Yeah.
You know, while other kids are like, my mom won't let me do this. For me, it's always been, well, my aunt won't let me do this, or my grandmother said I can't do that, because my parents simply weren't able to take care of me.
Both of your parents had MS.
They did. That's the diagnoses that both of them had. There is some question to whether my father actually had multiple sclerosis or whether he was misdiagnosed and actually had a brain injury.
Okay.
Right?
I'm like, what are the chances that two
I know.
unrelated people come together and end up with the same diagnosis?
Right. And they had already been diagnosed when they met. So it was probably a bonding point for them.
Okay, yeah.
But then it's like, look, the doctor said don't have a kid. You know, like, and again, I really resented that. I'm like, who does this? When the doctor says you probably won't have a healthy kid and you do it anyway, who does that? That said, once I kind of toned down my anger and was able to forgive them just for having me, just for making me be here.
Yeah.
I then had to really recognize I probably have the best DNA they had.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I got only the best of what they had because they both weren't working with very much. And so then that actually brings me to gratitude that I'm here. Like, it's actually a miracle that I'm here and I'm healthy.
Yeah.
And the older I grow, the healthier I actually become, which is the opposite of my parents. And so this thing that caused me great turmoil as a young person, and I was such an angry young person, so angry for so many different reasons. It's like, that's now the blessing of my life. That I can look around and say, wow, like, I'm here against all odds. And then truly, when I begin to look at what am I saying, what am I putting into the world, like, that becomes even more important to me.
Yes.
You know, it's like, whoa, Dre, you've got some weight to hold here, honey. You know, so are you just going to kind of pop off at the mouth and do what you want because your ego's so darn strong? Are you willing to become curious and create a life of substance?
That's the true spiritual work right there.
Yeah.
Create a life of substance. Look at what we're doing. Look at what we're bringing. Look at what we're leaving behind. And however we do it.
What are we leaving?
However we do it.
Carmen Spagnola? I think that's how she pronounces it.
I think it's Spaniola.
Spaniola. Somewhere on her website, she has a quote. I'm not gonna say it well because I haven't seen it in quite some time, but it was essentially like, I care less about like who I am in this world, and I'm beginning to care more about what type of ancestor I will become.
That is so good.
Isn't that oh gosh. It's just, yeah, okay, sure. Like, you're here, this is how you look, this is how you dress, this is, okay, that's really great. But like, what are you leaving behind?
Yeah.
Again, cool pictures on Instagram? Okay, that's useful.
Instagram's not going to be around that long.
I really have to check myself. You know, and I think it's a beautiful invitation for us all to check. I mean, there's so many opportunities for us to get honest with ourselves. And that's, it's actually like a kind of like a term that I use in my head is just self-honesty. Like, no matter what you say in the world, right? Like the gal who wrote you the angry post, I'm going to keep my tradition. She can say that all she wants. But if she gets really quiet and begins to see that maybe she can shift some things, if she knows that internally, it literally matters not what she sent to you. What matters is what you know, capital K, inside of yourself. That's the truth. And if you're making excuses and, and it's this and it's that, I'm just going to do what I want. that's not self-honesty. You're just throwing a tantrum.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it because I've done it many times. You know, so yeah, there's lots of work to be done.
Well, I think that this has been a really excellent conversation.
Mm-hmm.
We've gone on for 2.5 hours.
Oh my God. I feel like we're just getting started.
I know. Well, we're gonna have to continue this conversation, and we've got. Fortunately, we have years of friendship ahead of us.
Yes, that's right. Right.
Andrea will be a guest on future Joyful Telepathy podcast episodes, and I really look forward to that. And I love that I was able to sort of double task this a little bit. It's like we had a bit of a friend conversation.
I know, that's right.
And I also got I've got something now that I can put out to the world. So thank you so much for helping me tackle this very tender topic. This topic that is it's resonating with a lot of people. It's touching a lot of people in a lot of different ways. So I'm really grateful to have help in approaching this, because I couldn't have brought everything that you have brought to it in this conversation. And and the same goes for Lana. I could not have brought this to the world without your help and your participation. And so I'm very, very grateful and very appreciative of all of the energy that you've contributed to my humble podcast. Thank you so much.
I just thank you for giving me the opportunity, and I can say without blinking twice that my previous calls with you, connecting with my grandmother and my parents and other family members on the other side, has really helped me deepen my relationship with spirit, so that I've been able to create room in my mind even for thoughts and questions and ideas like this to even arise. Just the healing of myself has created more space in my life.
Aw, that makes me so happy.
So I thank you so very much.
Well, thank you. Thank you. That is, that feedback is the whole reason why I do this.
Yeah.
That's it right there. My testimonials page. My testimonials page is not me bragging. It's the reason why I do this.
Right.
It's like, that's the list of people that have said, you've helped me.
Yeah.
And
that's right.
Thank you.
And that's the beautiful root chakra part. Like, again, it's super fun to be in like upper chakras and connect to spirit and channel. Like, it's super fun. And when we drop into that root chakra and do the work, it really makes a difference in our daily lives.
It does.
It really, really does. There's one last thing I wanted to mention. Do you have Netflix?
I do.
Have you seen Coco?
No.
Oh my God. Okay. You got to watch this movie.
Hang on.
You got it. Everyone needs to watch it.
I have the Canada Netflix, though, so let me see if it's even on here.
Oh, okay.
I'm going, on there. Maybe it's not in my Netflix algorithm, or maybe it's not actually here.
Right.
For me,
so
there's a lot of
Pixar film. It's animated, but it's about Dia de los Muertos, and it's all about like connecting with our ancestors, forgiveness, keeping them alive, rattling those bones, calling them up on the phone and asking them for help. So it's a super, that movie just falls right in line to this conversation, in my opinion.
All right. Got it. It is on my list, and I'm going to watch it. Oh, and look at all the other stuff that's on here. Man.
Oh, perfect.
Enjoy the rabbit hole. Where are you hiding all this good stuff from me?
That's right. That's right. Thank you so very much.
And thank you for correcting me in the pronunciation of your name, Andrea.
I'm sorry it took so long. Like I said, for me, it's a practice in non-attachment. You can call me whatever you want.
It is, and I appreciate that. But I have assigned myself to say Andrea.
You're so cute.
And please correct me if I'm getting the inflection. I want to get it right. This is my spiritual practice, is honoring
Andrea.
Andrea.
I put the emphasis on the Dre. So Andrea.
Yeah. Andrea.
Full practice.
Okay. Yes. No. It's gonna take me, and I'm so terrible with names anyway. But it's like I say this with anyone new that I meet, because I'm like it's gonna take me a few times. So please correct me as many times. But I'm gonna get it.
That's right.
Yeah, it's important.
That's right.
It is. Well, my friend, whose name I just learned.
If you call me "Hey girl," I'll answer to that. Whatever you call
hey
me,
girl.
as long as it's coming from a pure place, I will totally answer. So hey girl.
Hey girl. Hey my friend.
That's right.
Thank you so much for helping me do this work. It's
absolutely. Thank you.
It makes it fun. Friends make it fun.
Yeah, that's right. That's because it is work. Like it's not easy.
We do the heavy lifting.
That's right. It is heavy lifting, and it truly takes a village. I'm so grateful to have you as a part of my village, and the Likewise. Whole Kate, joyful telepathy community.
Yeah.
What a beautiful place that we can share.
Yeah. Thank you. I don't want to let you go, but I know,
right?
I have to go to the washroom.
The day must go on.
Yeah.
Okay, Kate. Well, be well, and we'll connect soon. I hope.
Yes. Let's book a friend conversation,
that would be. I know,
casual friend conversation.
All the details about the wedding.
Because I know. Yeah, I need details of the wedding. I need the update on your life.
I know. That's right.
Yeah.
Well, let's do that soon then.
Yeah, I've got to get because I've got 3 weeks off of the hospital. So, which is great, but because of the kind of person I am, I have filled it up with all this other stuff to do. Example, recording a podcast on my very first day of my vacation, and I've got 2 pet sessions later. So that's what I do on my vacation. That's how you know I love what I do, because this is the first thing I go and do as soon as I have time off. So I just need to make sure that I've got all my ducks in a row in terms of the commitments that I've made already. And then I will reach out and we will have a friend phone call, hopefully very soon.
Yes, but in the meantime, you find the space for you to relax and recoup and luxuriate. And marinate.
Yeah, this
take care of yourself.
Is the big chunk of time that I gave myself this year. It was because the wedding it was fun, but it wasn't relaxing.
No, it's not relaxing at all. It's a lot of work.
I recommend getting married. By the way, it was definitely worth it.
Yeah. Only once though. I wouldn't want to have to plan another wedding. That's too much.
Yeah, well, and I'm never going to say never, I guess, about things. But I mean, if everything works out the way that we're planning, this is going to be my only wedding.
Right.
Yeah. But it was worth it. It was worth it. We'd been together for 10 years, and you don't think that it changes things or that it would be anything other than a party or a day. But having family come and sanction it, there was healing and there was ceremony, and it was important.
Right.
Yeah.
May I ask you just briefly? I'm curious. How has your relationship with Sweetie changed, if it has at all, since the wedding?
That is very difficult to quantify. And it's a question that I really try to answer because it did change.
Yeah.
And how do I describe how it changed? I think that there's a sense of security there. There's one thing, because we both knew that we were committed for the long haul.
Yeah.
But there's something energetically that changes when you stand up in front of your friends and family and you have a whole day and a ceremony and you file paperwork. It's there's something about the whole ritual of flowers and a ritual meal and witnesses and people crying and people hugging, and it just gives me a sense of security.
Yeah.
And I mean, what was really that our families are very different. Kat's family is actually very conservative, and my family has always come from an end of public service. So my family is very liberal, and so having Kat's very conservative family, they all fucking showed up. They all came. And that open demonstration of, we love you, you are a daughter of our family, you are a part of our clan, and we will ride or die for you because you are the partner that the daughter of our family has chosen. So now you are one of us. Through this ritual, you are a part of our family now. I feel like I'm a Cunningham now.
Yeah.
I'm still a Skiba, and I'm still a Sitka, my name that I gave to myself. But I am also a Cunningham. I'm a member of that tribe, and I now have access to their ancestors and their strength, which is really incredible. Their resilience. They've risen and fallen so many. The Cunninghams have a history that has not been lost, which is in stark contrast to my family's history, which has been lost multiple times on all sides. But the Cunninghams can trace their ancestry back 2,000 years. and know exactly who they are. And so to have had a wedding that ritually welcomes me into that family, I am on their family tree now.
That's right.
It's powerful, and it's healing to be accepted.
Yeah.
So it's, you know, that's something that, you know, I think that being gay and having downplayed the significance of marriage for most of my adult life, I really was denying how powerful that can be. And really, because really I was denying the hurt that is there when people deny you that ritual.
Right.
You know, they deny you that, and it's not, it's also the public, you know, having hospital visitation rights and, you know, legal rights and rights to will and property and, you know, all these things. It's really much bigger than that.
Right.
You know, there's a spiritual harm that's perperpetrated when people are denied the right to marry, because you're denying someone's
denial
humanity.
of family.
Exactly. You're denying their family. You're denying them a place in family. You're blocking their ability to be welcomed into the family of others. And so you're denying someone's humanity. And it's been done not just with gay people. And, you know, obviously in history, this has been a racial issue too.
Right.
And it's so denying marriage has been a weapon that is a spiritual weapon that's been wielded against people. And so it was a powerful thing to be married. And between Kat and I, having gone through that ritual and been indoctrinated in that faith, the faith of wedding vows, of marriage vows, there's a sense of permanence. You know, even though we were already committed for life, there really is this permanence, this sense of, you know, you are now like a part of me. Maybe there was some little bit that was withheld, or maybe there was some opening of something that was closed before. But I feel like, you know, when you've been with someone a long time, you kind of feel like they're an extension of your body. You know, and when you experience a bad breakup, you're losing a part of yourself, and you have to regrow it. You have to fill that emptiness with more of you. You know, you have to do some rapid growth to fill that gap. You know, I feel like marriage opened a door that made us even more a part of each other.
Right.
And there's a trust and a faith when you kind of go, I'm giving even more of myself to you.
Right.
And you know, and I know that I would survive if she predeceased me. But, you know, having been married now, there's like knowing that if I ever had to give up that physical connection, if she ever had to leave her body before I leave mine, there is definitely now an additional attachment, an additional price that will have to be paid through grief. But grief is how we show love. And that's okay, accepting that vulnerability, so that we can have that additional connection. I think I did a better job explaining it to you than I have done anybody else.
Oh, wonderful. I'm glad it's recorded. Just replay it.
I almost stopped recording it when the podcast ended, and I was like, okay, I'll just have to put this on my phone now and go, here you go.
That's right. That's right. Here's my answer. That's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that with me.
Yeah, thanks for asking.
That's basically how I felt when Sean and I got married. I felt not having been denied because we are straight, but we are both biracial. And so I know that for our parents, getting married was a political act.
Yes.
You know, it wasn't just, I love you and I want to be with you. You know, that's a luxury that Sean and I had.
It was a whole thing.
It was
a whole damn thing. Yeah.
You have to talk to your families about it, and you have to explain it and defend it to people.
And strangers are going to have opinions about it.
That's right. That's right. About your personal life.
Yeah.
So, you know, I don't have that experience. But the dropping down from the second chakra to the first chakra is what I felt. It was like, oh, like now my foundation is like in the ground with cement. Like the roots have gotten to the lava inside of the mantle. Like, okay, like this is now solid.
Yeah.
And sometimes like, I might refer to Sean as my brother, like we are family in every sense of the word. It's not just a romantic relationship. It's like, no, like we are kin.
Yeah. That shift to family is, it feels intangible, but it's definitely there. Yeah. It feels like that familial connection is, and it's funny that you say like referring to him as your brother, and sometimes because it's partner, and I've never said sister to Kat because my relationship with my sister is very complicated. So my association with the word sister is not anywhere near there, but best friend is, I mean, like my idea of best friend, because ever since I was a child, I wasn't a group friend person. I went all in on one person, and that one person was my world, and they were my everything, and I loved them, and and they were all about me, and it was like, it's that intimacy. But then connecting that private thing, and then now including each other's families, and my dad to take Kat and say, "You're my daughter," and for Kat's mom to take me and say, "I'm her daughter," and for her brothers to say, "I'm your brother now." That I have brothers now blows my mind. That I have older brothers blows my mind. And that we grow stronger through that marriage alliance. That's what marriage is for. It's like now we have your back. You are one of us. We will not. There's only so far you can fall in this world because we have you.
That's right. That's right. I'm going to say one quote, and then I will let you go. Get on with your day. There's a really great book by Sebastian Junger, who is a war correspondent and journalist, also writer and filmmaker. His book, Tribe. He's actually kind of touching on some of the things that we've touched on today, but there's this quote that he has that says, "Perhaps home is the place that when you show up, they cannot turn you away."
Yeah.
And so I'm just thinking about, Sweetie's family. It's like, well, now you can't turn me away. If I come to your door, you have to take me in. We're family. And that's, for myself, as an only child, both of my in-laws are deceased as well. So for both Sean and I, having more family, having more people to say like, yeah, we're here for you. Like, it feels really good, because it gets lonely sometimes. Yeah. Especially when you start losing parents, as I know that you both have as well. So
yeah, sure does.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing this day with me.
Yes. Likewise, my friend. Thank you so much.
Oh,
and thanks for being my friend. It's been years now, and we don't talk on a super regular basis. I should put it in my calendar to reach.
I know. I have to schedule play dates.
Yeah, pretty much, because otherwise it's like time slips by.
I know. One catch up a year is not enough.
No, it's really not. It's not.
That's
we should be doing every couple months at least.
Yeah. I agree.
Life moves quickly enough. Where do you live again?
So I live in Northern California, in the San Francisco Bay Area.
San Francisco Bay Area, okay. Just because I'm trying to come up with honeymoon destinations.
Oh my gosh. You guys.
So we're trying.
Come here.
San Francisco
you already know, girl.
Is an interesting. Yes, and because I'm trying to go, well, maybe if we can do a couple of little hop, skips, and jumps, maybe I can finally meet some of these people that I love so much who I've never been able to hug.
Yes, yes. Yeah. Oh, that would be so lovely to give you a hug. Yeah. That would be really amazing.
And I know that you and Kat would get on like a house on fire because she's smarter than I am. So she would drive the conversation to new heights. Yeah.
I love that.
Okay, I'm gonna bear that in mind. Yeah. It may be in January because we're looking at traveling in January. We're looking at going to Victoria in the next couple of weeks, and I'm like, well, while we're there, let's get our passports, and then that opens up some travel options. And maybe we can go to Vegas. Maybe we can go to Los Angeles. And now San Francisco is kind of on the list. So I'm like, well, I wonder how much it costs to do that little hop, skip, and a jump, because we could do Vegas, LA, San Francisco.
You definitely could.
We could, right?
You
like the
definitely could. A lot of people do that. So you keep me posted.
Yeah, we'll have to see. We'll have to see what because the other thing is that's on the table is actually Jasper, which is a totally different experience. We'd be choosing, a mountain of snow over desert. So it's really going to kind of depend.
Right. Yeah, that's right. You'll just have to see what works for you guys, what resonates.
Bighorn sheep and elk, or like desert and friends.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Because it is your honeymoon.
Mm-hmm. Well, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
And that's, it's nice to carve out time to honor your partner.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really beautiful thing.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And that's what makes Jasper kind of special, because we go there by train, right? And so when you go by train, it's a very insulated little world.
Mm-hmm.
And there's an intimacy around that. And then going and there's hot springs up there. So I don't know. It's all very tempting. We don't have money to do everything. So
right.
There's some decisions.
Exactly.
But she's also in the winter. She does tend to pine for like dry and sun. So Anyway, I should let you go. I'm
okay. Yes.
My body has needs, and my body is going. Come on.
I know that. Yeah, you've got some calls to do. So you've got to
I do. I need to like feed my body and exercise it and take care of it and get ready for my sessions later. So.
That's right. Well, big internet hugs for now.
Internet hugs.
That's right.
All right. You have a wonderful afternoon.
That's it for this episode of the Joyful Telepathy Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. If you would like to book a session with me, click on the link in this episode's description or visit tofenopsychic.com. And you, my dear listener, please use coupon code PODCAST. That's coupon code podcast for $20 off your first session. Until next time, be well and take care of each other.